Hello, welcome to this podcast. This is the DMSC podcast. I hope it could be useful for you. We are making this with the best hope that we can help you understanding the immigration law in Mexico. We are the best immigration firm in Mexico. We have the best immigration lawyers. And what we're looking for with this podcast is to help you that you could use it to do by yourself your own processes, or even if you decide to work with us, we are here for you, and we can give you a free consultation. Please leave a message here down of this podcast, and we will answer to you immediately. I would like to introduce to this podcast my friend, my partner, Ernesto Rizzo and Licenciado Aguado. Please, Ernesto, say hello to our viewers.
Hello, Abraham. Hello, Jose Luis. Hello, everybody. I am a little nervous because it's my first podcast in English, so my English is not very well, but I'm trying to do this. It is a pleasure to stay with you, Abraham, and with you, Jose Luis. And happy New Year for everybody. I very happy to help to all the foreigners that want to live in Mexico, to travel to Mexico, etc. So it is a pleasure to stay with you.
But nice to meet you for everybody. My name is Jose Luis Aguado. I am one of the best lawyer in Mexico, and especially with immigration. It's important that when a person travel to Mexico, found a very good answer to his process. Okay, and that is the idea of this video. Check the information, check the forms to get a Mexican residency, and maybe the idea is Abraham has a lot of questions about immigration, and Ernesto and me have the a few answers about the Mexican process to get a Mexican residency.
Excellent. Well, we are here for you, of course. We are all agreed that Mexico is the best destiny for immigration.
The
I
food,
know
I
that
the
I think
Mexican food is the
yes.
best in Mexico.
there is a lot of people from Germany, France, Europe in general, North America, traveling and living in Mexico peacefully, gratefully. We know that there is a lot of news about bad news, but that is not the complete reality. In order you to have an idea of Mexico, uh, all the Mexican country have the size of almost all Europe. So then it's possible that in all this territory there are problems, but in generally, Mexico is peacefully and the best place for living. That's the reason why we're making this podcast, and we talk about today about the complete guide to get the Mexican residency in Mexico. I divide it in two: permanent and temporary. Who wants to speak about the first, my friends?
I
So
think
sorry, so Luis, first I think that there are three things that are important for decide to live in a place: the food, the weather, and the places. So in that sense, the Mexican food is delicious. The weather is template in a lot of states in Mexico, and Mexico there are have places, beautiful places, beaches, mountains, forests, deserts in like in the place in the state that Jose Luis lives now. It is in Sonora, Mexico. There are that three things. For that reason, for whatever person in the world, I think it is a great destiny for living. So, Jose Luis, excuse me.
No, no, don't worry. About it's exactly the same. Okay, if you want to travel to Mexico, Mexico is a very big place. Okay, has a lot of work. But about the question of, of Abraham is the idea is exist three forms to stay in Mexico, like a tourist, like a permanent residency, like temporary residency. The idea is when the person travels to Mexico, you need to know exactly why is the reason because you need to live in Mexico. For example, if you want to stay like a tourist, it's important that you know if you have, for example, if your country needs a visa, for example, that is the first part. In the other ideas, you need to check if you apply for familial unity or economic solvency, of if you have a very good balance in your account, and maybe if you have a real estate. That is the idea where if you want to have a Mexican residency. But for example, exist different forms to get this kind of residency or travel to Mexico. But I know it sounds very difficult, but it's very easy. If you check your situation with an immigration lawyer, the immigration lawyer have the correct form to get the Mexican residency.
Yeah, I think
The temporary licencia, Ernesto.
it is important to clarify that the visitor condition, it is in the visitor condition there are three ways. Two, the tourist, the a person that a person that wants a refuge process in Mexico have another condition. They are a visitor for humanitarian reasons. And there are visitors with work permission in Mexico too, if that kind of visitors have a job offer, a work offer for a Mexican company. So there are two types of residences, temporary, permanent. There are a lot of ways to obtain the temporary residence and the permanent residence, but the ways always respond to the a right, important right in Mexico. Family, work, economic solvency, the possibility to invest in Mexico, to buy a
Or retire, for
property,
example.
retire exactly. Every of these ways allows to obtain or a temporary or a permanent. For
And
example,
what is the
retails,
difference? What is the difference between temporary and permanent? What do you say?
the expiration of the document. Temporary residence, it is a card, a green card. Well, in this moment, it is an orange card for one,
But
two,
Red
they
card.
3 or 4 years. What?
Red, isn't it?
It is a color orange between red.
Like
between
blood.
between
So
an orange and yellow, it's a very rare color.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So
I would like to apologize for us because we are not English speakers, as you see. We have some or a lot of mistakes, but we are doing in the best way. And there is even we are working right now. If you saw, there appear a partner of the firm, and maybe we are working. So then, please forget about these problems. Continue, Licenciado Ernesto, about a how can I get the temporary and how can I get the permanent? What is the difference between these ideas?
and so the temporary, it is a document that has an expiration for 1, 2, 3, or 4 years, and the ways to obtain are the unique family with marriage with Mexican, with a Mexican person. If a Mexican company offer a job, you can obtain a temporary residence with work permission. For example, the MSSA introduced in the past a concept that is the golden visa. It is a kind of visa that can obtain a person that has good incomes or savings, or for example, a person, a nomad, a digital nomad, or a freelance, a person can that can to live in Mexico and work for a company, an international company that in USA or in China, but that person wants to live in Mexico. There are the more common ways. The permanent residence, if you have a Mexican child, it is a permanent. If you stayed with a Mexican person for 2 years, marriage is the most common form. You can obtain the permanent. For retails, it is a way to obtain a permanent. There are different ways. It is important to first respond to the question: what is your intention to travel to Mexico, and what is your right in Mexico?
Okay.
Do you have a family? Do you have a job? Do you have incomes? Do you work to the international company, etc.?
Okay, Jose Luis, what do you think about the requirements? Is there a difference, big difference between each kind of residency? What do you think about it?
I think it's exactly the same idea than that Ernesto explains. Okay, if you want to live in Mexico, you need to know what is the correct reason because you need to stay in Mexico. Okay, for example, if you only want to stay in Mexico for living in the beach or I don't know, whatever, you need to check what is the correct the correct process for you. For example, if you want to stay in Mexico only for retired, you need to check how much money in your account, okay? And that is the correct form to choose the correct process. For example, exist a lot of people that has a lot of money in their account, and that kind of people check to the correct process and get the temporary or permanent residency, okay? It's important. The permanent residency and the temporary residency, the idea is the time of the in the card, okay? For example, if you have the temporary residency, it's important. The first one, it's only for 1 year. After 3 years, you can get the permanent residency, okay? Exists the other possibility. If you have a lot of money or if you have a very good pension, you can get the permanent residency immediately. But if you don't have a lot of money, don't worry, you can get the temporary residency for 4 years, and after that, you can get the permanent residency. And exist other forms. For example, exists a lot of people, and that people wants to have a very good investment in Mexico or real estate on another things. Exist a different process, but the final idea is exactly the same. If you want to stay in Mexico, you get the permanent or temporary residency, okay? That kind of cards always has the same information. In Mexico, you need a special number. The name in Spanish is CURP. It's a special number in Mexico. That number is for you have um, a registration in Mexico, for example, for taxes, for medical
Studies.
services, and other things. Okay, but that is the best important part of the card, because if you don't have that number, you cannot get a bank account, you cannot pay taxes, or you cannot open a company in your
Or a bank
total.
account, for example.
Exactly.
License for driving.
Or a driver license. That is the idea, because it's important that the person knows the 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 form to get the temporary residency. Maybe it doesn't matter, but you need to check what is the correct way to get the temporary or permanent residency, because the most important is the temporary or permanent residency card, because that is the special number for start your life in Mexico. Okay.
Okay, let me introduce an idea. First, the I think the best way to go this. First one, I get a visa from a Mexican consulate.
Okay.
Second one, I travel to Mexico. I get the immigration form in the airports. Third step, I go to the immigration authority and get my residence. Talking about somebody who's living in his country and has not any legal link with Mexico. I mean, who has never get married with a Mexican or has never get a child in Mexico. In this case, is this the correct, simple way? Of course, there is a lot of requirements, but is that the steps, simple steps?
Yeah, I think yes, because you can uh, see the immigration process in three phases. Before to travel to Mexico, so always that you need to travel to Mexico, before to travel, you need to know if you need a visa or not. For that reason, first step, get a visa. Obviously, there are visas for tourists, but there are visas for residences. If you stay outside of Mexico, you need a visa if you need to live to Mexico. But second phase, if you stay in Mexico, obviously you need a way to obtain a residence. If you have a visa, you only need to do a process that is exchange that visa for the residence, because the visa, it is a way to obtain a resident after. Because there are three kinds of documents. Visa, it is a document that allows to enter to Mexico, only enter to Mexico. The FMM, it is a document that allows to stay in Mexico for a
Period of time.
yeah, period of time, like a tourist, normally, or for to do the process of exchange that FMM for a residence. And the residence card, a permanent card or temporary card, it is the document that allows to stay in Mexico for 1, 2, 3, or 4 years, or permanent. It is important to say that the permanent residents have expiration for children, because the faces of the children's change in the time. For that reason, needs to renew your permanent residence. His permanent
Do you have
residence.
a last idea, Jose Luis, about this?
And it's important to check your nationality. That is the first part. Okay. Exists, like Ernesto explains. Okay. Exist two kind of nationalities. Okay. The first one, the person will be travel to Mexico within visa. Okay. And the persons that needs a visa to travel to Mexico. Okay. Abraham explains about one kind of process to get a Mexican visa. For example, like economic solvency. Okay. But it's important to check what is your correct process. Okay. For example, if you need a visa to Mexico, the correct process for you is like Abraham explains. You need to go to the Mexican embassy in your country. After that, you can get a Mexican visa, and after that, you need to travel to Mexico. Okay? But it's important to check what kind of process to apply in Mexico. But for example, exists a lot of process, for example, by job offer or economic solvency or a real estate or investment. You need to return to the Mexican embassy to get a new visa for change that visa in Mexico to a temporary residency or a permanent residency. That kind of process, it's important. Every process, it's different for every person, okay? You need to check with your lawyer what is the correct process for you, and after that, you can choose what is the better form to travel to Mexico. That is the final idea, and thanks, How.
Okay. Well, this is always an honor to be with the best immigration lawyers in Mexico. And if you don't believe it, look it for in or in Google, right? Um, we always say in Spanish because we always speak in Spanish in our podcast. This is our first in English. We have a few words that we say always at the end, and is that anybody is illegal in this world. The best idea with this podcast is that the best idea is a consultation. I mean, try to get a consultation with the lawyer of your preferences. We are not inviting you. We are not the only one in Mexico. We're the best, but of course, if you have a lawyer in Mexico whose you trust, the best idea is to explain your situation, explain your plans, and we'll help you with the process. Of course, we leave you down of this message of this podcast and the link for you to ask for a free consultation. We're here for you, and that's all, my friends. Do you have a few words, or we say the word?
No, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
This,
yeah,
this is
trusted.
our first time in English, and don't worry about that.
Trust in the MSSA because the MSSA have that idea to help to the people to good immigration to this country because there are a lot of kinds of immigrations, but if you know the right the process, the lawyers, etc., your process will be better. Obviously, so trust in the MSSA, and it is a pleasure to stay with you, Abraham, and with you, Jose Luis, in our first English podcast. I hope that I explained that ideas with this English.
We leave our social network by here, maybe here.
Or here,
And
or
please
here, or here.
Yes.
follow us, and we accept all the ideas to get it to do it better. Of course, we're trying to do our best. Let's say the words. Nobody
It's
is illegal
It's
in
illegal
this world.
illegal
in
in this world.
this world.
Have a beautiful
Bye.
day. Thank you.